Cinema Classics is brought to you by the Gateway Film Center, 1550 North High Street, Columbus, Ohio. For their details and showtimes online at gatewayfilmcenter.com.
The award-winning Cinema Classics is produced by John DeSando and Johnny DiLoretto. Listen to the shows online at WCBE.org and like us on Facebook. I'm Johnny DiLoretto.
I'm John DeSando.
This is Cinema Classics. We're at the Gateway Film Center, and we are prepping for a Cinema Classics screening, special Cinema Classics
Another one.
screening.
We had Bullet last time. Big hit.
Right, it was terrific. On Sunday, May 3rd at 2 p.m., we are going to show the 75th anniversary screening of The Philadelphia Story, which is one of my favorite films.
Yeah, you know, and it was remade. I guess I want to make this point. In 1956, High Society,
Right.
Bing Crosby,
Yeah.
Grace Kelly.
Right.
How can that go wrong? And it's nowhere near as
Right.
good as Philadelphia
Nowhere near
Story.
as sparkling or as charming. Or
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you why, number one. Is because in 1940, when this movie came out, we were at the pinnacle of the screwball comedy era.
Oh, and I love it.
And screwball comedy post World War II just wasn't the same. I mean, you could effectively argue that World War II put the kibosh on screwball comedy. America had its eyes on something different at that time. However, this movie, interesting, everybody knows this story if you follow Hollywood lore, that at this point, Katharine Hepburn, who was one of the biggest stars in the world from in the early 30s to about 1938.
Yeah, she had not been making it.
Right. She was considered box office poison, and her Hollywood career was effectively over. She went back to Broadway, where she did this play, Philadelphia Story, and she saw it as the opportunity to make her big screen comeback.
She had the rights.
She had the
Howard
rights
Hughes
to it.
bought her the rights.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Howard Hughes did it? And she had control over casting her co-stars.
Well,
did she not?
she didn't.
She didn't.
She wanted Spencer Tracy.
Oh, that's right.
And who else did she want? I've forgotten.
I don't know.
Spencer Tracy and somebody else. They, wait a minute. All right. Anyway,
So
so the MGM would not allow her.
Okay.
Well,
Well, thank God.
Yes.
Because the people that did get cast were perfect.
Cary Grant.
Cary
Jimmy
Grant
Stewart.
and Jimmy Stewart. So she plays a high society girl who is recently divorced from Cary Grant, and she's getting married to somebody else. Right? Isn't that what she's going to do?
You bet,
And
yeah.
then Jimmy Stewart, who is a serious reporter,
Right. Yeah. Well,
gets assigned to cover this story.
he's written some books even.
Yeah.
But, so
He's an
this is
aspiring
fine.
novelist.
I know.
This is beneath him.
Right. It is.
And he hates doing this kind of social crap. And so he ends up at her estate. Cary Grant ends up at the estate.
Yeah.
And then you have to see it to believe the sort of romantic triangle.
Well, you know, the whole
Dynamism that
the
happens
whole
here.
glorification of the upper class of the world is really unusual at this
Mhm.
time, 1940.
Right.
And but it is
Post-depression.
possible, yeah. But it's
Pre-war.
possible we couldn't do this today. I don't think the way we see the big gap
Yeah.
in classes, we'd be very careful about glorifying the moneyed class.
Sure.
This one does. And
Well, you
it's
know,
even
Americans at that time, American moviegoers, they liked to see that sort
Yeah.
of life reflected
Yes.
on the screen, even though they knew it, they couldn't relate to it. They did relate to the human elements of it. That has always been true.
Yeah.
But you know, I think that lifestyle just lends itself to the cinema. You know,
Yeah.
Especially this kind of like I said, this sort of effervescent kind of comedy. The dialogue is fantastic.
Oh.
The chemistry between the three leads is unparalleled. And Jimmy Stewart earned his Academy
He won.
Award for this movie. He
Hard
did.
to believe from
Now-
my point of view.
It's not for me, but obviously.
I know,
But
we differ.
the story on that was that 1939, he gave one of the greatest performances of all time in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington,
So
and lost out. So this movie, this award, this Oscar for Best
Smells
Supporting
like.
Actor, was compensation for
yeah,
losing out.
and that's what he felt. He never felt he should have gotten an award for that, and I believe that he felt they were just rewarding him for it.
Yeah.
Previous.
Now I will say this movie has one of the most romantic scenes I've ever seen.
Is this a swimming pool?
It is the swimming pool. It's late at night, and Jimmy Stewart and Katharine Hepburn they're drinking out of a bottle of champagne, and his defenses are down, and he's now falling in love with her, and some of the things that he says to her are probably, and this is why he won the Academy Award for this and deserved it, I think, is that the lines that he has to deliver to her are almost impossible for any actor to say, and yet they're incredibly complicated and verbose and big words, and but he, in his way, delivers them so naturally that you have to go back and listen to what he's saying. And his drunken demeanor.
This is
so
not where
beautiful.
he hiccups, is it? The
No,
famous
I don't-
hiccup?
No.
Do you know that he does that on his own?
Oh yeah, that's between him and Cary Grant.
It's almost
Cary
cracking
Grant
up.
doesn't miss a beat.
No.
But, that's a great. The chemistry between those two, between each of the two leads and Katharine Hepburn, and then all three of them together. It's just such a great movie that really needs to be seen on the big screen.
Well, another thing is that Cary Grant selected the role. First of all, he demanded having top billing, which he got.
Mm-hmm.
He got over
He
$100,000,
deserved
which
it.
was unusual.
He was the biggest
Yeah.
star.
And in fact, MGM gave her the $150,000 to find the actor, to offer it to the actor who
Okay.
they wanted, and which was Cary Grant. And the interesting thing is that he chose that role because he could have had Jimmy Stewart's role.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just seems like it's not as great a role, and here Cary Grant is giving it away.
I don't know. You think? Well, I think it's because that part, as played by Jimmy Stewart, is the least assured of the two characters.
Yep.
It's the one that changes and waffles, and and ultimately does not get the girl.
Yeah.
So you can see why Cary Grant has that. Plus, that role, C.K. Dexter Haven, the role of C.K.
Yes,
Dexter
I know.
Haven, puts him in a sort of he has an advantage over her.
Yeah.
He is bemused and sort of orchestrating
Well, sure.
her romantic choices from.
Because he knows she didn't
From the
get the
outside.
role of Scarlett O'Hara.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank goodness for that too. I mean, as much as I love Katharine Hepburn, she would not have been right as Scarlett O'Hara.
Well, I just would like your estimate of Jimmy Stewart winning the Oscar here. Are we both agreed it isn't perhaps his greatest role?
Oh, it's not his greatest role.
Okay.
No, absolutely not.
Give me one.
Well, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Okay.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay.
Anatomy of a Murder.
Okay.
Vertigo.
Yeah. But
Rear
I-
Window.
Thank you.
Naked Spur.
I knew Naked Spur would come
Do
in.
you want me to keep
No,
going?
I do not. Please stop. But I would say that going back to your original comments, the screwball comedy is worth seeing if you have never experienced it. When I go to a film, if I get rapid dialogue, which is unusual these days, but if I get a passel of dialogue, I'm really in heaven. Maybe that's because I'm an English major. Maybe that's because perhaps theater is even more favorable to me than
Yeah.
motion pictures. But that emphasis on the spoken word, and when it's done with such machine gun accuracy,
Mhm.
as you mentioned, I mean, Grant, Hepburn, Stewart,
Right.
From my point of view, it's heavenly.
And I would say, too, just to be clear, this is at the tail end of the screwball
Yeah.
comedy era. This isn't quite a screwball
No.
as some of the ones prior. And it should be said that Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn had a great screwball comedy track record. One with Bringing Up Baby,
Yeah.
which at the time was a huge flop.
In fact, this was their fourth film together.
But also Holiday, which is another one of my favorite screwball comedies. So with the screwball comedy, when you see this film, the interplay is a lot more sophisticated. I mean, I don't even want to say that it's more sophisticated. I just think it's less silly. It's less fervent.
Hey, let's not forget George
Farcical.
Cukor.
No, you got to
The
talk about
director.
George Cukor, the director, who was one of the great directors of the period, and known.
Continued to go on.
Yeah, he directed well into the 1970s.
Yeah. My Fair Lady in '64.
Yeah, Cukor was known for being able to handle women-centered movies. When you watch this movie, there are some dated, antiquated views of heterosexual dynamics and the role of the woman in these relationships. However, Cukor handles it in such a way that you never really feel that Katharine Hepburn's dignity is at stake. But she's such a haughty character that she does need a comeuppance, but Cukor handles that well. It doesn't come off as quite as sexist as it might in somebody else's hands.
And I guess
I sound really smart.
Finishing off,
Yeah.
the Oscar that Jimmy Stewart received misspelled Philadelphia.
Oh, is that right?
But he
On the
kept-
Oscar?
Yeah, on the Oscar. But he kept it, and he put it in his father's store.
In his hardware store in Indiana,
Yeah,
Pennsylvania.
Right.
To
You are
which
such
I
a
have
geek.
traveled.
I got it.
I have
John,
made
who
that.
wrote that kind
I
of
have
stuff?
made that pilgrimage to Jimmy Stewart's hometown to see that.
Oh,
Oscar.
you are great.
Yeah, I did. One other thing about this, and then I'll stop. Is after this movie, Jimmy Stewart made one other movie in that year or the year after called Pot of Gold, and off he went to World War II, along with many other of Hollywood's biggest stars, which I think, and I always harp on this, but imagine a time wherein the world's biggest stars went off to war. Imagine Brad Pitt and Ryan Gosling signing up to go fight overseas. It's unimaginable. Many of these Hollywood's biggest stars at the time were real heroes, and Jimmy Stewart was one of them.
And Cary Grant gave his salary to the British War Fund.
Wow, that's great.
These are good guys.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.